Great, thanks. Good evening, everyone. So, in addition to being Chief of Staff and Clerk of the Board at the University of Washington, I'm also a history professor, so I will just take 25 minutes from this 5-minute period. I'm happy to be here tonight. I bring greetings from President Troy Pano and the University of Washington. We are incredibly proud to be a meaningful part of this community, academically, culturally, financially, occupationally. We were asked to talk about key trends in our field, and in my field, one of the most prominent issues that we're dealing with right now is actually the need to justify our existence. The question of why higher education and why now. People are questioning the value of it, especially given the cost right now. And I can argue all night, my motivation is very clear, that this is a great value, but it's clear that the burden is on colleges and universities to make that case in a way we never have had to before, to provide outcomes information for our students, to help students and their family members understand why the investment of time and effort is worth it. And I also think there's a clear case as well for the value of college in helping to develop leaders, to develop people who are devoted to improving their communities and civic life. But higher education ignores the financial questions, ignores the return on investment questions, ignores the career placement questions at their peril. So institutions must continue to be sensitive to costs. UMW, I want to point out, has kept tuition flat for in-state undergraduates for 4 straight years now. We need to find additional scholarship and financial aid resources. We need to increase efficiencies. We need to work with state partners to help identify key areas to continue to invest in. On the pedagogical side, how we deliver education is changing. Students are demanding more choices in their programs and in how they're delivered. Certainly there are schools that are betting heavily on an entirely asynchronous online experience. Others are enhancing the use of hybrid technology, using things like video conferencing and learning management systems to offer students some flexibility with some parts of class. Some parts of class will be in person, others are online, some in real time, some asynchronous. At Mary Washington, we continue to believe that there is an important place for a residential liberal arts and sciences experience, albeit one enhanced by lessons that we have learned in the pandemic. Speaking of the pandemic, as I know many of us will be, the past 2+ years have been a remarkable growing experience for us as an institution. Now, from a public health perspective, COVID represented a major challenge. Residential colleges are the definition of a high-risk congregate setting for the transmission of an airborne disease. Now, we were incredibly fortunate to have many partners in the community as we address this. Our internal COVID response team partnered with Mary Washington Healthcare to provide testing, worked with other schools in the state to acquire rapid tests and develop best practices for dealing with cases, partnered with the Rappahannock Area Health District on testing, case management, vaccine access. I'm particularly proud of our institution. We framed this crisis as an opportunity for students, faculty, and staff to take care of each other, and there's no question in my mind they stepped up. UMW had some of the lowest case incident rates in the Commonwealth among higher education, and were held up by the Secretary of Education as a model for others to follow. In our classes, we pivoted to remote instruction and our hybrid options with opportunities for some students to join in-person classes remotely. I'm incredibly proud of our teaching center, our digital learning support team, our IT, and our faculty for making it possible to continue to teach and learn in the worst days of the pandemic. But now, as we are coming out of the COVID bubble, we are, as our students have begun saying, figuring out how to revive the vibe. Doesn't sound right when I say it, I know, but they think that's cool. That means in-person full classes, in-person events, building excitement back about being on campus, with an eye certainly towards public health conditions still, but learning to live with the pandemic. But maybe the biggest challenge that faces UMW and colleges across the nation right now is the impending demographic cliff. Birth rates have been down since the Great Recession in 2007 and 2008, and they haven't come back up. That means that we are looking at a national 25% decline in the number of high school graduates by 2026. Now, Virginia itself won't be hit as hard demographically as the industrial Northeast or the Midwest in this, but schools there are already coming after our students here in Virginia and trying to get them to go there. Add that to the impact of the pandemic going on going to college, as well as increased competition for other Virginia schools like Virginia Tech and George Mason, who are growing in leaps and bounds, and UMW has to make a different approach. For us, that's a plan to be smaller. We've already gone from 4,500 students to 4,000, and it's likely we'll probably end up somewhere around 3,500 students by the time the full demographic cliff is in effect. So UMW, though, is doubling down on residential liberal arts and sciences, a status that is just recognized by U.S. News and World Report, Washington Monthly rankings. But it's really important for me to note here, we don't want to grow. Mary Washington's strength, the central aspect of its character, is its small size, its Our distinctiveness in a crowded marketplace depends on us looking and feeling different than so many of our larger competitors in the state. And even though we may be getting a bit smaller, we continue to invest in programs and projects in areas of great need. I'll point out the partnership we have with Germana on an accelerated business degree entirely online. I'll also point out work that we're doing to explore the possibility of lab schools, working with the current administration. And we recently got a $250,000 internship grant. We're always looking for additional internship partners. Thanks to many of you who already hosted our students, and if you are interested in continuing to work with us, I'd be happy to talk with you.